Alright, I'll talk to you. I'll fucking tell you how it was, right? What happened was this, yeah? All the time you were talking about dirty fucking Jews. All the fucking time. Dirty fucking Jews, dirty kites, dirty dustbin lids. You want to talk about not getting into places, yeah?
Everybody makes fucking jokes. I didn't know you had no sense of humour.
And I ain't gonna fucking mention, right, the great big fuck-off elephant in the room. Look, Alfie, how many of my bookies worked Epsom this last May? None. Not one.
So for a few fucking jokes and Epsom, you fucking invite a tribe of savages into the city and don't fucking unlock the fucking gates!
I'm sorry, what are you saying, mate?
I'm saying, I'm sorry about the Jew thing.
You saying you're sorry?
Yeah.
You're sorry about the Jew thing?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, no, write that down. He said, I'm sorry.
Hello, how you all doing? Well, this new assassination attempt on Trump's got people in a bit of a tease, hasn't it? It's quite funny to watch. At the moment, you have the usual suspects on the right-hand side who are desperately trying to pin this on Israel and Jews in any way they can. So people like Ian Carroll, Candice, well, not Candice, I've not heard anything from her yet, but Stu Peters, many others are either sharing a screenshot supposedly of this guy wearing an IDF t-shirt, which has since come out as being AI, and looking at the guy who's building the ballroom for the White House and saying that
1 hour later.
and saying
2 hours later. 3 hours later.
look, it's a Jew that's an architect. Ooh, oh no. And
The next day.
this ballroom's being built to put a bunker underneath for the IDF or Mossad.
Eventually.
In a building that already has a city-sized bunker below it anyway.
Later.
It doesn't need them to build one.
One eternity later.
This is the level of delusion that these people have. No. Yes, the architect's Jewish. Yeah. He's also very good. And his architecture firm is very good as well. So, in true Trump fashion, he's basically picked out someone who's very good at the job. Just because this guy happens to be Jewish is what these people are basing this entire thing around. Oh no. Right. I'm going to give you some hard truths, Mr. Carroll, Mr. Peters, Mr. Owens. We'll get to that in a minute. Oh, Mr. Carlson. Here's some hard truth. The vast majority of architects these days, good ones, excellent ones, pretty much extremely highly regarded in their field, sadly, are Jewish. And the reason being is because they have more drive and more impetus to excel in what they do. They also have a very annoying mother behind them, I think, in the vast majority of cases, who will make them excel at what they do. The sad fact is, the white majority in America, and it's the same here in the UK, are disenfranchised and disincentivized to pursue jobs like that. They are. The fact is, a great many of them, a great many of our young people, our young academics, would be perfect to do stuff like that. But unfortunately, they're dissuaded from doing so. And this is due to the Marxist policy, the Marxist ideology, the Marxist view of a vast majority of the professors that are at these universities. They are destroying the education of our youth. They are. Now you could turn around and say, well, Marxism's Jewish anyway. Well, all right, yeah. Marx was ethnically Jewish. Wasn't ideologically, wasn't religiously Jewish. Very secular in his belief. He appealed to the secular masses and still does. The fact that he's Jewish doesn't make a damn bit of difference. Even a white person could have come out with that. The fact that it's flawed and doesn't work in the slightest is neither here nor there. Yuri Bezmenov, I'm sure you've heard.
Is a slow process which we call either ideological subversion or active measures, активные мероприятия in the language of the KGB, or psychological warfare. What it basically means is to change the perception of reality of every American to such an extent that despite of the abundance of information, no one is able to come to sensible conclusions in the interests of defending themselves, their families, their community, and their country. It's a great brainwashing process which goes very slow, and it's divided in 4 basic stages. The first one being demoralization. It takes from 15 to 20 years to demoralize a nation. Why that many years? Because this is the minimum number of years which requires to educate 1 generation of students in the country of your enemy, exposed to the ideology of the enemy. In other words, Marxism-Leninism ideology is being pumped into the soft heads of at least 3 generations of American students without being challenged or counterbalanced by the basic values of Americanism, American patriotism. The result you can see. Most of the people who graduated in the 60s, dropouts or half-baked intellectuals, are now occupying the positions of power in the government, civil service, business, mass media, educational system. You are stuck with them. You cannot get rid of them. They are contaminated. They are programmed to think and react to certain stimuli in a certain pattern. You cannot change their mind, even if you expose them to authentic information, even if you prove that white is white and black is black. You still cannot change the basic perception and the logic of behavior. In other words, these people, the process of demoralization is complete and irreversible. To get rid society of these people, you need another 20 or 15 years to educate a new generation of patriotically minded and common sense people who would be acting in favor and in the interests of the United States. So, on the stage of demoralization, obviously there are tendencies in each society, in each country, which are going
to opposite direction from the basic moral values and principles. To take advantage of these movements, to capitalize on them, is the main purpose of the originator of subversion. So we have religion, we have education, we have social life, we have power structure, we have labor relations, unions, and finally we have law and order.
What Gramsci had said was that we have this cultural hegemony, and this thing is like keeping out communism because it's like a force field. He says the only way to beat that is to get inside the key cultural institutions that generate this cultural hegemony, create a counter-hegemony from within and break them apart. This is cultural Marxism. And so cultural hegemony, he said, has to be beaten by infiltrating the major cultural institutions, and he named 5. Those are religion, family, education, media, and law, with a special emphasis put on education.
Education. Distract them from learning something which is constructive, pragmatic, efficient. Instead of mathematics, physics, foreign languages, chemistry, teach them history of urban warfare, natural food, home economy, your sexuality, anything, as long as it takes you away.
For the next 5 years, high school students in Oregon will not need to perform proficiency tests showing mastery of reading, writing, or math in order to graduate.
I'm teaching children social studies that's not in our curriculum, teaching them things about how to be an anti-racist. I taught them about protesting. I taught them about Black Lives Matter. I taught them about Black Lives.
I'm basically applying critical theory to educational practice as critical pedagogy.
I see teaching as a very political act. When we are engaging with our students, whether it's on social justice issues.
To infuse issues around race and culture and class into the subject matter. And as a science teacher, I have to do that.
The vast majority of you idiots will have. He was a former KGB officer that defected to the US. And he laid out exactly how the USSR was going to subvert and destroy the West. At that time, it had someone at the helm, that being the KGB and the USSR government. Right now it doesn't. It's out of control. And this has got us in a situation where no one knows what's going to happen. The wheels were set in motion, and they were set in motion on purpose to be unstoppable. Once the counter is started, it cannot be stopped until it reaches 0. And 0 is chaos, destruction, end. During my entire PSYOP series, I have been trying to tell you how you are being played. Several others have done the same. Several others. Some of them are a lot more qualified than I am. One of them being Chase Hughes, who I deeply respect and would love to talk to. If you're watching this, mate, give us a shout. But we've all been trying to warn you. This SPLC indictment in the US that has exposed a great many of the people that are on the online right as being under their control, has exposed a great deal of what's been driving the system. We are deliberately coerced, coaxed, enamoured, enchanted by a spell that is woven from the left. They create the situations that justified their organisation's existence. It's a tale as old as time. I was going to make this episode of PSYWAR just on Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson et al. Again. But I feel there's no point. I've covered that subject so many times. I have a whole entire playlist on my channel just exposing Candice and Carol that are the latest double act, shall we say, and the most popular. If you cannot see how you're being played now that all this has come out, there's no hope for you. There isn't. You're going to be forever taken under their spell. It's a sad fact. You may not like that sad fact, but it's tough shit. That's the way things are. As I've always said, on this channel, I will tell you the truth, no matter how harsh, and I will lay it out for you. I'm not going to sugarcoat things. This is not what I've done throughout this entire PSYWAR series, or my Gladio series, or my Media, Mind, Space and Manipulation series. You are being played like a violin would be played by a virtuoso violin player. Violinist. They pull at particular strings that are emotional triggers, emotional anchor points, and they embed themselves within it. The 4 steps of a psychological operation: division, isolation, echo chamber, tribalism, yeah? That can be broken up even further, and these go across the entirety of that whole 4-step process. And this is high emotion, repetition, binary choice. I'll say that again. High emotion, repetition, binary choice. The high emotion is linked in with the binary choice, forces you to pick one side or the other. The repetition is the constant feedback loop from that echo chamber, and the same rhetoric, often exactly the same words or very similar words, being said at exactly the same time. To tug at those emotional triggers. Take anti-Semitism, right? The pro-Jew, anti-Jew dichotomy, yeah? That is a binary choice straight away, either one or the other. They will feed you information that will validate, embolden and then bolster that position that you've taken, to drag you further across that dividing line, yeah? Further away from that dividing line. And you'll see nothing else. On both sides they do that. That dividing line is key. That's where nuance lies. Rational, objective thought lies. Anything beyond those two, beyond that line, is bias through high emotion, cognitive dissonance, indoctrination, zealotism, acolyte. They want you at that. The acolyte level is dogma, where you make the information you are being fed dogma. There is a certain religiosity behind it. And that's what they're aiming for on either side. You will then, once you reach that level, you will then not be able to see anything that contradicts what you think on that side. And you will act as an attack dog to keep everyone else who's on the other levels of that sort of, that train in line. And expel anybody that doesn't follow that track. This Trump assassination attempt follows that same track in both directions. On the one hand, you get the we must have a ballroom so it's easier to protect the president, and on the other you have the on the other side of the spectrum you have the more leftist approach, which is that it was all staged, likely to either build the ballroom for Trump or several other reasons that only the left can truly explain, because it's just as batshit as Trump did it to build a ballroom. The people guiding that other side are supposedly on the right. Yeah, the ones that are supposedly on the right. They're not on the right. They're all leftists at the end of the day, just posing as right-wingers, as people that agree with you. All of them. Although with Ian Carroll, we can't be 100% certain, because he just said he disappeared for personal reasons. Personal reasons. But both Nick Fuentes and Candace Owens went to Italy at the same time when all this about the SPLC came out. Now, with Nick, he did state to a few people that he was going to do podcasts with that he won't be available because of the vacation that was going on. Candace Owens just plumb didn't tell anyone. And Ian Carroll just said he had personal hang-ups that needed sorting. All three of these people are Catholic. We know for a fact two of them are involved with the Jesuits. Carroll through his family connection. Cantifa through SSPX, the church that she was inducted into the Catholic faith through. SSPX is also heavy ties to Masonry, Freemasonry, but not Scottish and English. Well, you're right, that many people kind of try and paint all Masonry on. If you understood the origins of the Illuminati, which is what a lot of people know about, and what a lot of people are assuming comes out of all Freemasonry. If you are seeing it from a Scottish and York Rite perspective, the Illuminati doesn't fit, and neither does SSPX or the Jesuits. The Illuminati come from a bastardization of Bavarian Freemasonry and French Freemasonry, Jacobin. If you do not understand who the Jacobins are, and they're not Jews, they've nothing to do with Jews, stop thinking ridiculous thoughts. Look into Jacobin, yeah, into the Jacobin Freemasonry, French Freemasonry. This is where Illuminism comes from. They created the radical left wing. Out of that radical left wing came things like the Fabian Society in the UK, many others. The French Revolution was dominated by Jacobins, their leadership. They're very anti-royalist, very much secular, I suppose, in a way. But they see themselves as enlightened, as knowing more than the rest of society. And that's what holds them above everyone else. Which is why it was so popular with the elite, who also see themselves as above everyone else. Within the French Masonic beliefs, is a heavy focus on Mithraism. Yeah, Mithraism. If you don't know who Mithra is, Mithras, look him up. Look him up. It was what was competing with Christianity during the early days of the Christian religion, before Rome took it on. Mithraism was actually more dominant, really. It's what a lot of Islam is based on, although they don't like to admit it, again, because of the Roman influence. Again, nothing to do with Jews. If you want a true version of Christianity, the later Torah texts are closer to the original than our Roman Catholic version. Protestantism, or the Reformation movement, kind of picked up on this. They saw this aspect, saw the Roman dominance, saw the Mithraic influence, didn't like it. So our version of Protestantism, believe it or not, isn't anywhere near close what the original was, what Martin Luther actually wanted. But that's a story for another time. The left wing, my point, really, is the left wing have taken over every aspect of our media influence sphere. They control the vast majority of the big tech organisations. They control most of the media, social media influencers that are on the right. All of them are just leftists at the end of the day. The same clique came out of Gladio, formed Gladio, should I say, and came out of Gladio to form the deception industrial complex I've talked about many a time. The situation in Iran is controlled by these leftists, the same again. We installed the Ayatollah, but the left controls the Ayatollah, the Marxism. It's Islamo-communism that comes out of Iran and the Muslim Brotherhood. It's what we inserted into it. This war, like I've said countless times beforehand, Trump is on the royalist side, Iran is on the illuminist side, shall we say, the DIC, the Dick side. That's why I chose Deception Industrial Complex, by the way, because I thought it perfectly encapsulates who they are and how they act and what they are. They're all dicks. But a lot of the politicians are pussies or arseholes. And as as Team America says, dicks fuck pussies, but they also fuck arseholes. And pussies aren't very far from pussies. Pussies aren't very far from arseholes, but dicks fuck pussies and arseholes. Perfect analogy. That's what makes up the left. And the people that control the left, surprisingly enough. The EU is again a leftist project, DIC project. It began as a way of consolidating power for the royalist faction. Then they agreed to the Gladio programme, and we're in the situation we are now. This psychological war has been waged for 2 centuries. And it was started in response, in most part, to a tightening grip that the royalists had. Gladio DIC is their invention. They created it. The truth movement, our movement, the alternative research field, is a field created by the royalists, the system. That both sides have used to create their disinformation, to create their conspiracy theories, to discredit ourselves. They give us enough information, enough seeds, that we can piece certain things together through our own creativity and create our own narratives around. The vast majority of the more famous, more influential people in our sphere are implanted by both sides, the system and the DIC. This war in Iran has exposed it, if you're paying attention. If you're not, you won't see it. If you're following Candice, following Ian Carroll, following Tucker Carlson, following David Icke, Max Egan, anyone like that, you're not going to see. If you want to know how the system works, 3 pillars of society: legal and enforcement, finance and trade, religion and spirituality. You control those 3, you control the world. Washington DC, City of London, Vatican City. All 3 work as one. All 3 are one system of control. And all 3 that dominate. Thanks for watching.
Dangerous subversive elite has managed to infiltrate the highest levels of Western institutions and governments to implement the criminal plan of the Agenda 2030. In many self-proclaimed democratic states, the voices denouncing this global coup are being silenced through censorship, intimidation, psychiatrization, and even arrest. Among the victims of the totalitarian regime quietly establishing itself in Europe, Canada, Australia, and other vassal nations of the United Nations, NATO, World Health Organization, and World Economic Forum, all private entities funded by the same powers, is lawyer Rainer Fulmich, unjustly imprisoned and still awaiting for a fair trial. His crime is having dared to speak the truth in a world of criminal lies. I call on Catholics and all people of goodwill to raise their voices in defense of those persecuted by the globalist regime. It is not Attorney Fulmich who should be in prison, but those who committed the greatest crime ever against humanity: Anthony Fauci, Bill Gates, Klaus Schwab, George Soros, Ursula von der Leyen, Albert Bourla, and all their accomplices and emissaries, especially those in institutional positions. Free Rainer Fulmich.
1937, a group called the Institute for Propaganda Analysis published a simple warning for the public. They called it the 7 Propaganda Techniques. Not conspiracy theory, not speculation, a documented playbook. Here they are. First, name-calling. Attach a negative label to an opponent so people reject them without examining the argument. Second, glittering generalities. Use inspiring words like freedom, justice, or patriotism without explaining what they exactly mean. Third, transfer. Attach your message to something people already respect, a flag, a symbol, a tradition. Fourth, testimonial. Use a famous person to endorse an idea, even if they know nothing about it. Fifth, blame folks. Present yourself as an ordinary person, just like the audience, even if you are not. 6. Card stacking. Show only the facts that support your side. while quietly leaving out everything else. And 7th, bandwagon. Tell people that everyone believes something, so they feel pressure to believe it too. 7 techniques, published nearly 90 years ago, designed to help ordinary citizens recognize when someone is trying to shape their thinking. Today, the technology looks different. The messages arrive through television, phones, algorithms, and influencers. But with techniques, they haven't changed at all. So the next time you hear a confident voice telling you what to believe, pause. Ask yourself a simple question. Are you hearing information, or are you hearing the playbook? My friends, we are all anonymous, and question every narrative, especially the ones designed to make you feel something before you think.
Trump and the MAGA Republicans represent an extremism that threatens the very foundations of our republic.
It's called stochastic terrorism. The term sounds complicated, but the meaning is simple. Stochastic means random, unpredictable, but statistically inevitable. Terrorism here means the use of fear and violence for political gain. Put together, it describes a process where leaders, parties, or the press use words, not bullets, to inspire violence. They demonize their opponents, calling them monsters, traitors, or worse. They never say pull the trigger. Instead, they create the environment where someone else eventually will. That is the essence of stochastic terrorism. The pattern is always the same. 1. Inflammatory language is broadcast into the culture. 2. Plausible deniability shields the speaker. I never told anyone to commit violence. 3. A radicalized or unstable individual acts. 4. The cycle repeats, the responsibility is avoided. This is not accidental. This is willful and deliberate. They know exactly what they are doing, and history proves it. Nazi Germany, Joseph Goebbels' propaganda machine labeled Jews as subhuman and vermin. The German people were told these neighbors were a threat to society itself. Violence became inevitable, and millions looked the other way. Rwanda, 1994. The radio station RTLM called the Tutsi minority cockroaches. That language primed the minds of ordinary citizens to carry out one of the fastest genocides in history. Do you see the pattern? The language comes first, the violence follows. When the left calls their political opponents Nazis, evil, or enemies of the people, their objective is clear: dehumanize them, justify their removal, and silence them through fear. When you light the fuse, you cannot act surprised when the explosion comes. My friends, we are all anonymous. They fear us not because we are violent, but because we see through their lies.
We have a Timu Hitler in the White House right now.
I just want to say that I have never promoted violence whatsoever.
And you have, and as many of your fellow Democrats, have used some heated rhetoric against the president. And do you think twice about that when something like this happens?
What rhetoric do you have in mind?
Show. The whole thing. And maybe that sounds crazy. Or maybe it's just the feeling you get when something stops feeling real. When voices that once felt independent start sounding the same. Same timing, same themes, same sudden shifts. They don't fully agree. They don't fully disagree either. Just enough friction to keep your attention. Just enough alignment to shape your perception. And you start to notice it. The tone feels off. The conviction feels performed. And reactions feel engineered. Not necessarily fake, but not entirely organic either. And that's the point. Because influence doesn't require control. It requires direction. A nudge here, a narrative there. And before you know it, people aren't reacting to reality. They're reacting to a version of it. I'm not here to tell you what's true. I'm just saying, if it feels coordinated, pay attention to that. Because whether it is or is not, the effect is the same. And the only thing that matters is this. Be careful what you absorb. Be careful what you repeat. And be careful who benefits from your reaction. Because whatever this is, it's not random, anonymous. My friends, we're all in it together.